you lose your life. The story of Jolene Thornton is so sad. She was successful. She was gorgeous. She had so much more life ahead of her, and at 30 years old, she lost her life over a fight over a man.
South Los Angeles, where the aroma of jerk chicken and curry goat draws families from blocks away, Pepper's Jamaican and Belizean cuisine stood as more than just a restaurant. It was a sanctuary, a place where the Caribbean diaspora could taste home, where children gathered after school for plates piled high with rice and beans, where dreams of entrepreneurship bloomed under neon signs advertising authentic island flavors. But on July 17th, 2025, those dreams would be shattered in the most brutal way imaginable. 30-year-old Jolene Tessa Turton, the visionary behind Pepper's empire, would take her final breath on a street corner just miles from the restaurant she had built from nothing. Not from a random act of violence. Not from being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But from something far more primal. A deadly love triangle that would expose the dangerous lengths people will go to when they can't have what they want. This is a story about obsession. About what happens when romantic rivalry spirals into calculated harassment. When jealousy transforms into a weapon sharper than any knife. It's about a successful woman who refused to be intimidated, who drove straight into a trap that had been months in the making. But most disturbing of all, it's about a justice system that would ultimately ask not why a woman was brutally murdered, but why she dared to fight back against her tormentor. Today, we dive deep into the case that has left a community demanding answers, a family crying for justice, and a killer who, according to explosive claims, walks free among the very people she terrorized. This is the story of Jolene Tessa Turton, entrepreneur, mother, dreamer, and the night that jealousy over a man wielded a knife with deadly precision. But to understand how a love triangle turned lethal, we need to understand who Jolene really was, and why her refusal to back down would ultimately cost her everything. Welcome to True Crime Tales HQ. If you're new here, we dive deep into cases that matter, examining not just what happened, but why it happened and how we can prevent it from happening again. Before we continue, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest investigations. Most importantly, share this video. These stories save lives when the right person sees them at the right time. The story begins not with her death, but with her life. A life built on determination, seasoned with island spices, and lived with a kind of fearless confidence that would both elevate her community and ultimately seal her fate. Jolene Tessa Turton wasn't just another small business owner trying to make it in Los Angeles. She was a force of nature wrapped in determination, carrying the weight of two cultures on her shoulders and the dreams of an entire community in her heart. Born to Belizean heritage, but raised with American ambition, Jolene understood what it meant to bridge worlds. Her great-grandfather's legacy lived on in a library bearing his name back in Belize, a testament to a family that understood the power of leaving something meaningful behind. But Jolene wasn't content to simply honor the past. She was building the future, one plate at a time. At just 30 years old, she had already accomplished what many only dream of. Pepper's Jamaican and Belizean cuisine wasn't just a restaurant, it was a cultural embassy. Nestled on the famous Slauson corridor near Van Ness Avenue, it became the heartbeat of Caribbean life in South LA. The aroma of curry and Scotch bonnet peppers would drift down the street like a siren's call, drawing everyone from homesick islanders to curious food lovers eager to taste authenticity. But Pepper's was just the beginning of Jolene's empire. She owned a beauty supply store, understanding that serving her community meant more than just feeding their bodies. It meant helping them look and feel beautiful. She operated a trucking company, recognizing that success meant diversifying, building multiple streams of income that could weather any storm. Each business was a brick in the foundation of generational wealth she was determined to build. Her cousin Cherish would later say, she was the reason for Pepper's. She loved to cook and wanted a place where everyone in the community could come and eat. But those who knew her understood it went deeper than cooking. Jolene was creating spaces where people belonged, where the Belizean grandmother could find the oxtail that reminded her of home, where the second-generation Jamaican kids could connect with flavors their parents had carried across oceans. Jolene loved children, her sister revealed, her voice heavy with loss. She had a big house and always had the kids there. She believed it was important for them to have spaces to be together and make memories. This wasn't hyperbole. Jolene was raising her 11-year-old son Endon, while simultaneously serving as a mother figure to her cousin's daughter, a young girl who had lost her own mother. Jolene made sure the girl had her own room in the house, her own place in the family, her own piece of security in an uncertain world. Her mother would remember finding affirmations scattered throughout Jolene's belongings after her death. Handwritten notes to herself. I am a boss. I am an entrepreneur. These weren't just feel-good mantras. They were battle cries from a woman who understood that success required constant self-motivation, especially when you're building something from nothing in a world that doesn't always want to see you win. The trips back to Belize weren't just vacations, they were pilgrimages. Jolene was deeply proud of her roots, making several journeys to her ancestral homeland in recent years. She understood that knowing where you come from gives you strength for where you're going. Her cousin Isabel Requena would later describe her as more than just a beautiful face. She was a visionary, a proud entrepreneur, actress, and the heart behind Pepper's Jamaican Belizean cuisine. But success, especially visible success, comes with a price. And in the weeks leading up to that fateful July night, the bills were coming due in ways Jolene never could have imagined. Because what Jolene had built, the respect, the community, the thriving businesses, had caught the attention of someone who couldn't bear to watch another woman rise. And on July 17th, 2025, that jealousy would explode into violence on a street corner that would never be the same. The summer heat in Los Angeles had been relentless that July, the kind of oppressive warmth that makes tempers flare and bad decisions seem reasonable. But nothing about the evening of July 17th, 2025, would prove reasonable. Nothing about what happened in the 1200 block of West 87th Street would make sense to anyone who knew Jolene Tessa Turton. It was just before 9 o'clock when the call came in. A woman down. Blood on the pavement. The kind of scene that transforms a neighborhood corner into a crime scene, where curious onlookers gather and whisper theories that will never capture the full horror of what actually happened. The initial reports were confused, contradictory. Gunshots, some said. A shooting in Westmont. But the witnesses were wrong about the weapon. What killed Jolene Tessa Turton wasn't a bullet fired from a distance. It was something far more personal, far more brutal. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner would later confirm what her family already knew with devastating certainty. Jolene had been stabbed. Multiple times. Here was a successful businesswoman, a pillar of her community, lying dead on a street that wasn't her own, in a confrontation that should never have happened. But Jolene hadn't stumbled into danger. She had driven there. Deliberately. Purposefully. The victim had gone to an apartment complex in Westmont, seeking out the very person who would end her life. But why? What could have been so urgent that it pulled a mother away from her son and a businesswoman away from her empire? The answer lay in the most dangerous combination known to human nature: love and jealousy. According to sources, this wasn't about business rivalries or professional disputes. This was about a man, a classic love triangle that had spiraled completely out of control, with two women connected to the same romantic interest. Claims suggest the harassment had been building for weeks. The other woman allegedly couldn't accept sharing or losing this man's attention. What started as romantic rivalry escalated into something much darker. Systematic intimidation designed to drive Jolene away from the relationship. But Jolene wasn't the type to back down. She had built businesses from nothing, raised children while building an empire, stood up to every challenge life had thrown at her. She wasn't about to be intimidated by someone who couldn't handle competition. The harassment allegedly escalated beyond phone calls and social media. The woman had reportedly visited Pepper's restaurant with friends, creating what was described as provoking energy. Not coming as customers, but as antagonists whose very presence was designed to make Jolene feel unsafe in her own establishment. And on that sweltering July evening, the provocation finally worked. Jolene had reached her breaking point. She got in her car and drove to that apartment complex, ready to end this toxic situation once and for all. 2 women, 1 man. A confrontation that had been brewing for weeks, finally exploding into violence on a street corner in Westmont. The fight was brief. The consequences were permanent. When it was over, Jolene Tessa Turton lay dying from multiple stab wounds while her killer, according to explosive community claims, would soon be walking free, protected by a legal system that would ask not why a successful woman was murdered, but why she had dared to fight back. But the real shock was yet to come, because what happened next would shake the community's faith in justice itself, revealing a system that seemed more interested in protecting the killer than seeking justice for the victim. In the days following Jolene's brutal murder, something disturbing began to emerge, not from the crime scene, but from the silence that followed it. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department launched their investigation, but as days turned into weeks, the community noticed something troubling: virtual radio silence. No press conferences. No public appeals for information. No updates about arrests or suspects. For a case involving such a prominent community figure, the lack of communication felt deliberate. Despite the stabbing occurring almost a week ago, the police have been tight-lipped. Local LA news blogs reported. This wasn't the careful discretion of an active investigation. This felt like something else entirely. The family grew increasingly frustrated. Here was a woman who had employed dozens of people, fed thousands, served as a pillar of her community, and her death was being treated with what many saw as inexplicable indifference. Community activists began speaking out. This sister here is from Belize, but she's an advocate and activist, and was an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, hired black in her community, gave back to her community, one activist stated publicly. So she will be remembered, gone, and never ever forgotten. But remembering Jolene wasn't the problem. Getting justice for her was proving to be something else entirely. The initial confusion about whether she'd been shot or stabbed suggested either miscommunication or something more troubling. When the family had to publicly correct reports claiming their loved one had been gunned down, it raised questions about how thoroughly the scene had been processed, or whether someone wanted the details obscured. As the investigation dragged on with no visible progress, whispers began circulating through the community about what was really happening behind closed doors. The rumors were too shocking to believe, too specific to ignore. And then came the bombshell that would transform grief into outrage and turn a murder case into a community uprising. Because what the family was about to discover would not just explain the silence. It would reveal a betrayal so profound that it would shake their faith in the entire justice system. What came next would shatter everything Jolene's family thought they knew about justice in America. According to explosive community sources, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office made a decision that sent shockwaves through everyone who knew and loved Jolene. They allegedly rejected the case entirely. Not delayed. Not pending further investigation. Rejected. No charges filed. No arrests made. A killer allegedly walking free while a family buried their daughter. The reasoning, according to these claims, was as stunning as it was infuriating. Sources allege that prosecutors blamed Jolene for her own death, stating that both parties had opportunity not to fight each other, and that the victim shouldn't have pulled over there. In other words, according to these allegations, the DA's office saw this not as murder, but as mutual combat, where both women bore equal responsibility for what happened. But how does a systematic harassment campaign become mutual combat? How does a victim driving to confront her tormentor become equally guilty of her own murder? According to sources, the other woman had spent weeks deliberately provoking this exact confrontation. The harassment wasn't random, it was calculated. Phone calls, social media attacks, showing up at Pepper's restaurant with friends to intimidate Joline in her own establishment. All of it designed to push Joline past her breaking point. And it worked. The love triangle at the center of this tragedy had created a toxic dynamic where the other woman allegedly couldn't accept sharing or losing the man's attention. What started as romantic rivalry became an obsession with destroying Joline entirely. Sources claim the harassment escalated systematically. First the phone calls, then the social media campaign, then the physical intimidation at her restaurant. Each step carefully calculated to force Joline into doing exactly what she did, drive to that apartment complex for a final confrontation. But here's where the legal system allegedly failed completely. According to these explosive claims, when Joline arrived seeking to end the harassment, the other woman was ready. Ready with a knife. Ready with a self-defense claim. Ready to kill and walk away free. The most disturbing allegation? After brutally stabbing Joline multiple times, sources claim the killer showed no remorse. She allegedly has been calling people talking mess since the murder, continuing the same antagonistic behavior that led to the killing. Even more shocking, this person allegedly continues to roam around the streets of the same neighborhood where Joline lived and worked, protected by what the family sees as a justice system that prioritizes the aggressor's rights over a murder victim's life. The legal loophole appears to center on California's self-defense laws. According to these claims, you can systematically harass someone for weeks, provoke them into coming to your location, then kill them and claim you were defending yourself. If true, it represents a dangerous precedent. Victims can be baited into their own murders, and their killers can walk free. The implications of these allegations reach far beyond one family's tragedy, exposing systemic failures that put other successful women at risk throughout the community. The allegations surrounding Joline's case have sent shockwaves through the Caribbean business community in Los Angeles. Restaurants like Pepper's aren't just commercial enterprises. They're cultural lifelines where diaspora communities maintain connections to their heritage while building new American dreams. When someone like Joline is killed and her killer allegedly walks free, it sends a terrifying message to other women entrepreneurs. Success can make you a target, and the system won't protect you. She hired black in her community, gave back to her community, activists noted. Joline wasn't just building personal wealth. She was creating economic opportunity for others. When someone like her is murdered, entire communities lose not just a person, but an economic engine that employed drivers, served overlooked customers, and provided jobs while feeding souls. The legal precedent these allegations suggest is deeply disturbing. If accurate, they reveal how someone can orchestrate months of harassment, successfully bait their victim into a confrontation, then claim self-defense after committing murder. This isn't justice. It's a blueprint for getting away with premeditated killing. Most chilling of all, if these claims are true, then visible success, the kind that allows you to own multiple businesses and become a community leader, also makes you visible to those who would rather destroy than build. The community response has been swift and passionate. Prayer circles that serve as both mourning rituals and protest gatherings. Social media campaigns demanding justice. A growing chorus of voices refusing to let this case disappear into bureaucratic silence. As we reach the end of this devastating story, Joline Tessa Turton's case officially remains an active investigation with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. But for her family, the waiting has become unbearable. Each day, without arrests, without charges, without justice, feels like another betrayal of the woman who gave so much to so many. The family has made it clear they want Joline remembered as the visionary she was, not as a victim. They held the beautiful prayer circle and lantern release at Manhattan Beach on July 27th. Dozens of lights floating into the night sky, each one carrying the hopes and memories of people whose lives had been touched by Jolene's generosity. But the most powerful tribute isn't found in memorial services. It's in Pepper's Jamaican and Belizean cuisine, which continues to operate despite the family's uncertainty about the future. Her mother admits they remain undecided right now what we're going to do about the restaurant, but customers refuse to let Jolene's dream die with her. Her 11-year-old son, Endon, faces a future without the mother who wrote daily affirmations. "I am a boss. I am an entrepreneur," while building an empire to secure his future. The young girl she raised as her own must navigate life without the woman who gave her a room, a place, a family when she had lost everything else. The community continues demanding answers. Local activists understand that if these allegations about the DA's handling prove true, then Jolene's death represents more than personal tragedy. It represents systematic failure that puts other successful women at risk. The questions remain. Can someone orchestrate harassment, bait their victim into a confrontation, kill them, and walk free by claiming self-defense? If so, what protection exists for women who refuse to be intimidated? These answers won't bring Jolene back. Nothing will restore the laughter in her kitchen, the pride in her eyes when customers praised her curry goat, the fierce love she showed her children every day. But perhaps if her story reaches enough people, if enough voices demand accountability, if enough hearts are moved by this tragedy, perhaps some good can come from this devastating loss. Jolene Tessa Turton built bridges between cultures, generations, and dreams. She proved that a young woman with Belizean roots and American ambitions could create something beautiful in a world that often tears such dreams apart. Her legacy lives on in every plate served at Pepper's, in every child who saw her success and dared to dream bigger, in every woman who refuses to make herself smaller to avoid becoming a target. If this case has moved you, if you believe successful women deserve protection rather than victim blaming, if you think Jolene's life mattered, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share her story. The more people who know Jolene's name, the harder it becomes for her case to be forgotten. Leave a comment below with your thoughts, and let us know what other cases you'd like us to investigate. Your engagement helps ensure victims like Jolene get the attention they deserve. Remember, in a world where jealousy and hatred make headlines, be like Jolene. Build something beautiful. Lift others up. Leave the world better than you found it. That's how we honor Jolene Tessa Turton's memory, not just by demanding justice for her death, but by living lives worthy of the legacy she left behind.
At just 27 years old, Titorsha Tiara Williams had everything to live for: a loving son, a supportive family, and dreams of a brighter future. She was a young mother with a heart full of kindness, a smile that could light up a room, and a determination to build a better life for herself and her child. But on May 9, 2024, everything changed. In a single horrifying moment, Titorsha's life was brutally taken by the man she once trusted, the man who had promised her love and security. This is the tragic story of how a young woman's fight for freedom ended in unimaginable violence, a story that will leave you questioning how love could turn so deadly. Titorsha's journey began with hope and ambition. She was a teenager with big dreams when she met Kevin Scott, a man nearly twice her age. At first he seemed charming, offering her the stability and affection she craved. But as the years passed, the relationship took a dark turn. What started as a partnership built on love and promises soon became a prison of control, fear, and manipulation. Titorsha tried to break free, but each attempt was met with resistance, threats, and a growing sense of danger. On that fateful day in May, Titorsha made the brave decision to leave. She had finally found the strength to walk away, to reclaim her life and protect her son. But as she stood in the kitchen of their home, telling Kevin it was over, something snapped. In a fit of rage, he reached for a gun, and in an instant, Torsha's dreams were shattered. Her young son, Christian, witnessed the unthinkable, a moment that would haunt him forever. What led to this horrific act of violence? How did a relationship that began with so much promise end in such a devastating tragedy? And what secrets lie hidden in the shadows of Kevin Scott's past? Stay with us as we uncover the chilling details of this heartbreaking case, a story of love, loss, and the devastating consequences of control. This is the story of Torsha Tierra Williams, a young mother whose life was cut short far too soon. But it's also a story that demands to be heard, a reminder of the dangers that can lurk behind closed doors. What you're about to hear will leave you on the edge of your seat, questioning how something so beautiful could turn so tragic. What started as a love story quickly turned into a nightmare of manipulation, control, and murder. Stay with us as we uncover the chilling details of this heartbreaking case. Before we continue with this heartbreaking story, I need you to pause for a moment. What you're about to hear might be difficult to process, but it's crucial information that could save lives. If you're watching this video, you probably know someone like Torsha, someone who's always ready to help others, someone who sees the best in people even when they don't deserve it. Maybe that person is you. This is why I'm asking you to not just watch, but to engage with this story. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever noticed red flags in a friend's relationship? Have you ever felt helpless watching someone you care about struggle in a toxic situation? What did you do about it? Your experiences and insights might help someone else recognize similar patterns in their own life. By sharing, you could be the voice that helps someone find the courage to break free. If you believe in the power of awareness and education, subscribe to our channel. By building this community together, we create a space where these important conversations can happen. Hit that notification bell to join us in our mission to understand and prevent these tragic situations. Your engagement could make the difference in someone's life. It could be the reason someone finds the strength to leave, the courage to speak out, or the hope to keep fighting. Now, let's continue with Torsha's story. Remember, her life was taken far too soon, but her legacy can inspire us to take action and create a world where no one has to suffer in silence. Torsha Tierra Williams, affectionately known as Bobo to her family and friends, was a young woman whose presence could light up any room. Born on June 28, 1996, in Chicago, Illinois, Torsha was the embodiment of resilience, kindness, and ambition. From her early years, she was a beacon of hope and joy, adored by her parents, Trinetta McClure and Terrell Williams, and cherished by her siblings. She was a princess in every sense of the word, radiant, compassionate, and full of dreams. Torsha worshipped at St. Malachy Church, dedicating her life to Christ in her youth, and carried that faith with her throughout her life. Her journey through St. Malachy Catholic Elementary School and Our Lady of Tepeyac High School was marked by remarkable achievements and an infectious enthusiasm for life. She was known for her charm, her wit, and that brilliant smile that could disarm even the sternest of hearts. After graduating, Torsha pursued her studies at Malcolm X College, determined to build a future filled with opportunities. She worked tirelessly, from B's Kitchen to KFC, and later in security, where she earned the admiration and respect of her colleagues. But above all, Torsha was a devoted mother to her son, Christian. Her love for him was boundless, and she dreamed of creating a life where he could thrive and be happy. But Torsha's story is not just one of triumph and love. It is also a story of heartbreak and tragedy. At just 17 years old, she met Kevin Scott, a man nearly twice her age. On the surface, Kevin presented himself as stable, loving, and protective, a man who could offer Torsha the security and affection she longed for. But beneath that facade lay a troubled past and a history of abusive relationships. Kevin was a man who knew how to manipulate, to control, and to isolate. What began as a whirlwind romance soon turned into a nightmare that would change Torsha's life forever. Kevin Scott was no stranger to turmoil. By the time he met Torsha, he had already fathered children with multiple women, each relationship marked by instability and control. He was a man who thrived on power, using his age and experience to dominate those around him. To the outside world, he appeared charming and dependable, but to those who knew him best, he was a ticking time bomb. His relationships were short-lived, often ending in emotional manipulation and heartbreak. And when Tetorsha entered his life, she became his latest victim. At first, Kevin's attention was intoxicating. He showered Tetorsha with affection, promising her a future filled with love and stability. But as the months turned into years, the cracks began to show. Kevin's controlling behavior became impossible to ignore. He isolated Tetorsha from her family and friends, cutting her off from the support system she had always relied on. He monitored her every move, dictated her choices, and eroded her self-worth. What seemed like a fresh start for Tetorsha soon became a prison of control and manipulation. Tetorsha's dreams of a brighter future began to fade under the weight of Kevin's dominance. She was no longer the vibrant, ambitious young woman she once was. Instead, she was trapped in a cycle of fear and uncertainty, struggling to hold on to the person she used to be. But despite the darkness that surrounded her, Tetorsha never lost hope. She clung to the love she had for her son, Christian, and the belief that one day she would break free and reclaim her life. The central conflict in Tetorsha's story is one that resonates with countless others who have experienced the horrors of domestic violence. It is a story of love turned toxic, of promises broken, and of a young woman's fight for freedom. But how did it all go so wrong? How did a relationship that began with so much promise end in such unimaginable tragedy? The answers lie in the details of Tetorsha's life, the choices she made, and the man who ultimately betrayed her trust in the most devastating way possible. As we delve deeper into this story, we will uncover the chilling details of Tetorsha's relationship with Kevin Scott, the manipulation, the control, and the moments that led to her untimely death. This is not just a story about one woman's struggle. It is a story that sheds light on the dark realities of abusive relationships and the importance of recognizing the signs before it's too late. Tetorsha's life was cut short, but her story serves as a powerful reminder of the strength it takes to break free and the courage it takes to seek help. Stay with us as we explore the life of Tetorsha Tierra Williams, the man who shattered her world, and the tragic events that unfolded on 9/9, 2024. This is a story that will leave you questioning how love could turn so deadly and how one woman's fight for freedom ended in unimaginable violence. Tetorsha Tierra Williams was just 17 years old when she met Kevin Scott, a man nearly twice her age. At the time, Tetorsha was a bright, ambitious teenager with her whole life ahead of her. She had dreams of attending college, building a career, and creating a stable future for herself and her family. But when Kevin entered her life, everything changed. He was charming, confident, and seemed to offer the kind of stability and affection Tetorsha had always longed for. To a young woman navigating the complexities of adulthood, Kevin's attention was intoxicating. He promised her love, security, and a future filled with possibilities. And for a while, Tetorsha believed him. In the beginning, their relationship seemed like a fairy tale. Kevin was attentive, showering Tetorsha with affection and making her feel like she was the center of his world. He told her she was special, that he would take care of her, and that together they could build a life full of love and happiness. For Tetorsha, who had always been a giver, someone who put others before herself, Kevin's promises felt like a dream come true. But as time went on, the cracks in that dream began to show. Kevin's controlling behavior started subtly. He would question Tetorsha about where she was going, who she was talking to, and why she wasn't spending more time with him. At first it seemed like jealousy, a sign that he cared deeply about her. But soon it became something far more sinister. Kevin began to isolate Tetorsha from her family and friends, cutting her off from the support system she had always relied on. He would criticize her choices, undermine her confidence, and make her feel like she couldn't survive without him. What started as small comments and criticism soon escalated into full-blown manipulation. Tetorsha's family and friends noticed the changes in her. The vibrant, outgoing young woman they knew was slowly disappearing, replaced by someone who seemed anxious, withdrawn, and unsure of herself. Her mother, Trinetta McClure, recalls how Titorcia would make excuses for Kevin's behavior, often defending him even when it was clear something was wrong. "I knew something wasn't right," Trinetta said in an interview. "But every time I tried to talk to her about it, she would shut down. She didn't want to believe that the man she loved could be capable of hurting her." As the months turned into years, Titorcia's dreams began to fade. The ambitious young woman who had once been so full of life and hope was now trapped in a cycle of control and manipulation. Kevin's grip on her life tightened with each passing day, and Titorcia found it harder and harder to break free. She had become a prisoner in her own relationship, her once bright future overshadowed by the darkness of Kevin's influence. But despite the pain and fear, Titorcia never stopped fighting. She clung to the love she had for her son, Christian, and the hope that one day she would find a way out. She tried to leave multiple times, but each attempt was met with emotional manipulation, threats, and promises that things would change. Kevin would apologize, swear he would do better, and for a while, things would seem to improve. But the cycle always repeated itself, leaving Titorcia exhausted and overwhelmed. What started as a relationship built on love and promises had turned toxic, and Titorcia's dreams were slipping further and further out of reach. But even in her darkest moments, she held on to the belief that she could reclaim her life and build a better future for herself and her son. Little did she know, the fight for her freedom would come at a devastating cost. As we move forward in this story, we'll explore the events that led to Titorcia's tragic end, the moments that defined her relationship with Kevin Scott, and the choices that ultimately sealed her fate. This is a story of love, loss, and the devastating consequences of control. Stay with us as we uncover the chilling details of what happened next. As the years passed, Titorcia's relationship with Kevin Scott became a living nightmare. What had once seemed like love and security had turned into a cycle of emotional and psychological abuse that left Titorcia feeling trapped and powerless. Kevin's manipulation was calculated, his control absolute. He knew exactly how to break her down, to make her doubt herself, and to keep her under his thumb. The vibrant, ambitious young woman who had once dreamed of a brighter future was now a shadow of her former self. Her spirit crushed under the weight of Kevin's dominance. The abuse took many forms. Kevin would belittle Titorcia, criticizing her appearance, her choices, and even her abilities as a mother. He would gaslight her, making her question her own reality and convincing her that she was the problem. If she tried to stand up for herself, he would explode in rage, leaving her terrified and submissive. He controlled every aspect of her life, her finances, her social interactions, even her time. Titorcia was no longer allowed to see her family or friends without his permission, and he monitored her every move, often tracking her phone or showing up unannounced to ensure she was where she said she would be. One incident in particular stands out. Titorcia had planned to visit her mother, Trinetta, with Christian. Kevin, however, had other plans. He accused her of trying to leave him, of conspiring with her family to take Christian away. In a fit of rage, he destroyed her phone, cutting off her only means of communication with the outside world. Titorcia was left isolated, with no way to call for help or even let her family know she was okay. It was moments like these that made her feel like there was no way out. But despite the fear and despair, Titorcia never stopped trying to break free. She made multiple attempts to leave Kevin, each time gathering the courage to walk away, only to be pulled back in by his promises to change. He would apologize, swear he would do better, and for a while, things would seem to improve. But the cycle always repeated itself. Kevin's apologies were empty, his promises lies. Each time Titorcia tried to leave, the abuse would escalate, leaving her more exhausted and hopeless than before. Kevin's manipulation was relentless. He would threaten to take Christian away from her, warning her that no one would believe her if she spoke out about the abuse. He would play on her fears, convincing her that she couldn't survive without him, that no one else would ever love her. And when that didn't work, he would resort to physical intimidation, leaving Titorcia terrified for her safety and the safety of her son. By 2024, Titorcia had reached her breaking point. She was no longer the naive teenager who had fallen for Kevin's charm. She was a mother, a fighter, and she was determined to break the cycle for the sake of her son. With newfound strength, she made the decision to leave Kevin once and for all. She knew it wouldn't be easy. Kevin had made it clear that he would never let her go, but she was ready to fight for her freedom, no matter the cost. On May 9, 2024, Titorcia finally confronted Kevin. She told him their relationship was over, that she was done living in fear and under his control. For a moment there was silence. And then, in a fit of rage, Kevin reached for a gun. What happened next was a moment of unimaginable violence, a moment that would change everything. Titorcia's fight for freedom had come at the ultimate price. But how did it come to this? What led Kevin to commit such a heinous act? And what happened in the moments after Titorcia's life was taken? Stay with us as we uncover the chilling details of the final chapter in this heartbreaking story, a story that serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of domestic violence and the courage it takes to break free. May 9, 2024, started like any other day for Titorcia Williams. She woke up with a sense of determination, a resolve that had been building for months. Today was the day she would finally end her relationship with Kevin Scott. She had made up her mind: no more empty promises, no more fear, no more control. For the sake of her son, Christian, and for herself, she would reclaim her life. But what Titorcia didn't know was that this decision would cost her everything. That afternoon, Titorcia confronted Kevin in the kitchen of their home. With Christian playing nearby, she told him it was over. Her voice was steady, her resolve unshakable. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind countless times, preparing for the backlash she knew would come. But nothing could have prepared her for what happened next. Kevin, unable to accept the loss of control, erupted in a fit of rage. In a matter of seconds, he grabbed a gun and fired multiple shots, leaving Titorcia lifeless on the floor. The sound of gunfire echoed through the house, a horrifying reminder of the violence that had just unfolded. Christian, just a young boy, witnessed the unthinkable. The trauma of seeing his mother murdered in cold blood would leave scars that would last a lifetime. In an instant, his world was shattered, his innocence stolen by the man who was supposed to protect him. The image of his mother's lifeless body would haunt him forever, a painful reminder of the day he lost the person who loved him most. The news of Titorcia's murder sent shockwaves through her community. Friends, family, and neighbors were left reeling, struggling to comprehend how such a vibrant, loving young woman could be taken so brutally. Titorcia was more than just a victim. She was a daughter, a sister, a mother, and a friend. Her loss was felt deeply by everyone who knew her, and the senselessness of her death left a void that could never be filled. In the days that followed, the community came together to mourn Titorcia's passing. Vigils were held in her honor, and tributes poured in from those who had been touched by her kindness and warmth. Her mother, Trinetta McClure, spoke openly about her grief, her voice trembling with emotion as she described the pain of losing her daughter. "She was my everything," Trinetta said in an interview. "She had so much life ahead of her, so many dreams. And now she's gone, all because of one man's selfishness and rage." But even as the community grieved, the search for Kevin Scott began. After the murder, Kevin fled the scene, leaving behind a trail of devastation. For nearly 3 months, he remained on the run, evading law enforcement and leaving Titorcia's family in a state of agonizing uncertainty. During that time, Trinetta and her family worked tirelessly to keep Titorcia's story alive, sharing her story with the media and pleading for anyone with information to come forward. A GoFundMe was set up to help cover funeral expenses and support Christian, a heartbreaking reminder of the financial and emotional toll of Titorcia's death. Finally, on July 18, 2024, Kevin Scott was arrested. The news brought a bittersweet sense of relief to Titorcia's family. While his arrest couldn't bring her back, it was a step toward justice, a chance to hold him accountable for the pain he had caused. Kevin was charged with first-degree murder, a charge that reflected the cold, calculated nature of his crime. But for Tatisha's family, the road to healing was far from over. The scars left by her death would remain with them forever, a constant reminder of the life that had been stolen far too soon. As we reflect on Tatisha's story, we are reminded of the devastating consequences of domestic violence and the courage it takes to break free. Her life was a testament to resilience and love, and her death serves as a stark warning of the dangers that can lurk behind closed doors. But her story doesn't end here. It lives on in the hearts of those who loved her, in the memories of her son, Christian, and in the lessons we can all learn from her tragic fate. Stay with us as we explore the final chapter of this heartbreaking story, the trial, the aftermath, and the legacy Tatisha leaves behind. This is a story that demands to be heard, a story that reminds us of the importance of speaking out, seeking help, and standing up against abuse. Tatisha's light may have been extinguished, but her story will continue to shine, inspiring others to break free and reclaim their lives. Tatisha Tiara Williams' story is one of love, resilience, and unimaginable loss. Her life was a testament to the strength of the human spirit, but her death serves as a heartbreaking reminder of the dangers of domestic violence and the importance of recognizing the signs early. Tatisha was more than a victim. She was a mother, a daughter, a sister, and a friend. Her light touched everyone who knew her, and her legacy will live on in the hearts of those who loved her. But her story is also a call to action. It's a reminder that domestic violence can happen to anyone, regardless of age, background, or circumstance. It's a reminder that we must be vigilant, that we must listen to those who cry for help. Like, comment, and share this video to keep her memory alive and to ensure that her story reaches those who need to hear it most. Let's start a conversation. What do you think about this case? How can we, as a society, do better to protect victims of domestic violence? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tatisha's life may have been cut short, but her legacy will endure. She was a fighter, a mother, and a beacon of hope for those who knew her. Let us honor her memory by standing up against abuse, by supporting those in need, and by creating a world where no one has to live in fear. Together we can break the cycle of violence and ensure that stories like Tatisha's become a thing of the past. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening to Tatisha's story. Let's keep her light shining by spreading awareness, offering support, and taking action. Remember, you are not alone, and there is always hope. Stay safe, take care of yourselves and those you love, and let's work together to create a brighter, safer future for everyone.
Dallas County detectives are investigating the death of a mother and her little boy. Seagoville police found Lyric Bacchus and her 7-year-old son Deuce dead in the garage last week.
February 9th, 2024. Seagoville, Texas. While most 27-year-olds are posting birthday selfies and planning weekend celebrations, Lyric Bacchus should be waking up to another year of success. She's built a thriving online boutique, cultivated tens of thousands of devoted followers, and it's her birthday. But when family members arrive to check on her after days of radio silence, they discover something that will haunt this tight-knit community forever. Lyric and her 7-year-old son Deuce found unresponsive in their garage. No signs of violence. No evidence of a break-in. Just a mother and son who went to sleep and never woke up. What happened in those final hours? And how did a day meant for celebration become a cautionary tale that could save your life? Before we dive into this story that'll make you double-check every appliance in your home, drop your location in the comments. I would like to know where my true crime family is watching from, because what killed Lyric and Deuce is lurking in homes across America right now. This is a story of how a successful entrepreneur, a loving mother, and one invisible threat created a tragedy that nobody saw coming. Welcome to True Crime Tales HQ, where we examine the cases that matter most. If you're new here, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. because the information we're about to share could literally save your life or someone you love. Lyric Backus wasn't just another social media influencer chasing viral moments. Born February 9, 1997, this Texas native had cracked the code that most online entrepreneurs never figure out. She'd built something real. Her Instagram handle at Lyric.Closet wasn't just a catchy name. It represented a legitimate business empire that connected with real people facing real problems. Lyric's Closet wasn't your typical dropshipping operation or affiliate link farm. This was a carefully curated boutique offering unique, stylish pieces that her followers genuinely loved. We're talking about a woman who understood that social media was just the delivery method. The real value was in the product and the authentic connection she made with her community. Her tens of thousands of followers weren't just numbers on a screen. They were a loyal customer base who trusted her taste, her recommendations, and her genuine personality. What set Lyric apart wasn't just her business acumen. It was her authenticity. In a world of staged photos and manufactured moments, Lyric shared her real life. The struggles of building a business from scratch. The challenges of single motherhood. The victories and setbacks that come with entrepreneurship. Her followers felt like they knew her personally, because in many ways they did. And then there was Deuce, 7 years old, first grade at Seagoville North Elementary, and absolutely the center of Lyric's universe. This wasn't performative motherhood for the gram. This was a woman who had found her purpose in raising her son and building a legacy he could be proud of. Deuce appeared regularly in her content, not as a prop, but as her genuine partner in life's adventures. Teachers and neighbors described Deuce as having a bright smile and playful spirit, the kind of kid who made friends instantly and left an impression on everyone he met. Neighbor Diane Loggins had watched Deuce play with his own 3-year-old son just days before everything changed. He was just a regular kid, Loggins would later tell reporters. Always smiling, always playing. The kind of kid you want your own children to be around. The bond between Lyric and Deuce was evident to anyone who followed her journey. She didn't just post about being a mom. She lived it. Every milestone, every ordinary Tuesday, every small victory was documented not for likes and engagement, but because she was genuinely proud of the life they were building together. By February 2024, Lyric had achieved something remarkable. A successful online business that was growing every month. A loyal community that genuinely cared about her and her son. And most importantly, she had figured out how to balance entrepreneurship with the demands of single motherhood. She was living proof that you could build something meaningful in the digital age while staying true to your values and priorities. But success doesn't make you bulletproof. Money can't protect you from every danger. And sometimes the deadliest threats are the ones hiding in plain sight, disguised as the most ordinary moments of daily life. Friday, February 9th, 2024. Lyric's 27th birthday. For someone who shared her life so openly online, who connected with her community daily, who treated her followers like family. The silence was deafening. Where were the birthday posts? Where was Deuce's sweet message to his mom? Where was the content that usually came like clockwork? Lyric's most dedicated followers started noticing first. This wasn't like her. Something was wrong. When family members couldn't reach Lyric and Deuce for several days, they knew they had to act. This wasn't a broken phone or a spontaneous trip. Lyric was always connected, always responsive, always present for her community. The radio silence from someone who lived online wasn't just concerning. It was terrifying. They rushed to the Seagoville home, probably expecting to find them sick with the flu, maybe dealing with some family emergency that had kept them offline. What they found instead would shatter this community forever. Lyric and Deuce, unresponsive in the garage. No signs of struggle. No evidence of violence. No indication that anyone else had been there. Just a mother and son who had simply stopped breathing. The scene was peaceful in the most horrifying way possible. Like they had just fallen asleep and never woken up. Neighbor Diane Loggins' surveillance cameras captured what no neighbor ever wants to witness. It was just mayhem, he told WFAA, his voice still shaking from what he had seen. Everybody out here crying and screaming. The cops out here had taped it off.
It was just mayhem. Everybody out here crying, screaming. The cops was out here, they had taped it off.
First responders arrived quickly, but it was already too late. Whatever had happened in that garage had been swift, silent, and final. EMTs worked frantically, but there was nothing they could do. The time for saving lives had passed hours, maybe days ago. Think about this scene for a moment. A quiet residential street in Seagoville. The kind of place where kids ride bikes and neighbors know each other's names. Suddenly swarming with emergency vehicles, police tape, and neighbors trying to process what they were witnessing. This wasn't supposed to happen here. Not to them. Not to the woman who always waved when she saw you. Not to the little boy who played with everyone's kids. The timing made everything infinitely worse. Lyric's birthday, what should have been her 27th celebration, what should have been a day of joy and gratitude and looking forward to the future, became the day her community lost two of their brightest lights. Seagoville police immediately launched a full investigation. But what do you investigate when there's no obvious cause of death? No signs of foul play? No evidence of break-in or robbery or violence of any kind? Just two bodies and a mystery that would require forensic experts and medical examiners to solve. The family had a theory almost immediately. They suspected carbon monoxide poisoning. Something about finding them in the garage. Something about the way they looked. Something about the complete absence of any other explanation. It all pointed to one terrifying possibility that nobody wanted to voice out loud. The invisible killer had struck again. Carbon monoxide. Two words that should terrify you more than any serial killer, any home invader, any criminal we've ever covered. Because unlike human predators, carbon monoxide doesn't choose its victims based on anything personal. It doesn't care if you're rich or poor, young or old, careful or careless. It just kills quietly and efficiently, without warning or mercy. Here's what investigators believe happened that night. Lyric came home after a birthday celebration. Maybe she was tired from the day. Maybe she needed a moment to decompress before going inside and dealing with bedtime routines. Maybe Deuce had fallen asleep in the car, and she didn't want to wake him up just yet. So she sat in her car in the garage with Deuce, probably turned on the engine for heat or air conditioning, just to be comfortable while they had a quiet moment together. And then, exhausted from a full day of birthday celebrations, they fell asleep. That's it. That simple. That innocent. That deadly. Because what Lyric didn't know, what most people don't know, is that her garage was about to become a gas chamber. And the weapon was something so common, so everyday, that it's produced by nearly every household appliance that burns fuel. Here's why carbon monoxide is the perfect killer. It's completely odorless, colorless, and tasteless. You can't see it building up in your space. You can't smell it creeping into your lungs. You can't taste it in the air you're breathing. It just quietly fills whatever space you're in. And by the time you realize something's wrong, your brain is already too oxygen-starved to save you. When you run a car engine in an enclosed space like a garage, that engine is pumping out carbon monoxide with every breath it takes. And here's the nightmare part. Carbon monoxide doesn't just make you sick like other poisons. It literally hijacks your blood, turning your own circulatory system against you. Your red blood cells have one job: carry oxygen from your lungs to every part of your body. Your brain, your heart, your organs, they all depend on that oxygen delivery system working perfectly. But carbon monoxide is a molecular con artist that tricks your blood into choosing death over life. Carbon monoxide binds to your red blood cells 200 times stronger than oxygen does. Think about that number. 200 times. So instead of life-giving oxygen flowing through your system, you're getting poisoned with every heartbeat. And your body can't tell the difference until it's way too late. Your brain starts shutting down first because it needs the most oxygen to function. You get confused, dizzy, weak. You might think you're just tired, exactly what someone would feel after a birthday celebration, after a long day, after dealing with the normal stresses of life. Then comes the nausea, the chest pain, the overwhelming need to just sleep. And that's the trap. That's how carbon monoxide kills so efficiently. Your body is literally screaming for help. sending every distress signal it can. But your oxygen-starved brain interprets all of those signals as exhaustion. So you close your eyes, thinking you just need a quick rest, never realizing that every breath is bringing you closer to death. The symptoms read like a checklist of things people ignore every day. Headache, dizziness, weakness, upset stomach, vomiting, chest pain, confusion. How many times have you felt some of those symptoms and just pushed through? How many times have you thought, I just need to sleep this off? In a closed garage with a running car, carbon monoxide levels can become lethal in just minutes. Not hours. Minutes. The exhaust from that car engine builds up faster than you can imagine. And once you're unconscious, there's no waking up to save yourself. There's no moment of clarity where you realize what's happening and get to safety. If Lyric and Deuce had just cracked a window, if the garage door had been open, if they had been anywhere else, they would still be alive today. The margin between life and death was that thin. The news hit Seagoville like a freight train carrying nothing but grief and disbelief.
Dallas County detectives are investigating the death of a mother and her little boy. Seagoville police found Lyric Bacchus and her 7-year-old son Deuce dead in the garage last week.
This wasn't just another tragedy you scroll past on social media. Another headline that makes you shake your head and move on with your day. This was their neighbor, their friend, their community member. Deuce's school, Seagoville North Elementary, immediately went into crisis mode. They sent letters home to every parent, brought in counselors, and tried to help first graders understand why their classmate wasn't coming back to school ever again. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that their friend is never going to play with them at recess again? How do you help children process a loss that adults can barely comprehend? Neighbor Dion Loggins found himself facing an impossible conversation with his own 3-year-old son. It's just hard for me to have the conversation with my 3-year-old and tell him how he just lost his first friend, he said. Think about that. This little boy's first experience with death, with loss, with the incomprehensible reality that sometimes people just don't come back. But the real explosion of grief happened online, where Lyric's digital community learned about the tragedy in real time. Her tens of thousands of followers suddenly found themselves mourning someone they felt they knew personally, someone who had been part of their daily routine, someone whose content had made them smile or inspired them or just made them feel less alone. Her comment sections became digital memorials filled with crying emojis and memories from people who had never met her in person but felt connected to her story. People shared screenshots of conversations they'd had with her, posts that had meant something to them, moments when her content had brightened their day. The grief was real, even if the relationship had been digital. However, social media being what it is, not everyone responded with sympathy and support. Some users started speculating about what really happened that night, dissecting every detail they could find. Was Lyric being irresponsible? Had she put her son in danger? The judgment came fast and harsh, because apparently even in death, people can't resist blaming the victim. The speculation got ugly quickly. People who had never met Lyric, who knew nothing about her character or her choices, felt qualified to judge her final moments. They picked apart her social media posts looking for evidence of irresponsibility, as if finding fault with her would somehow make sense of a senseless tragedy. The investigation continued as Dallas County detectives worked methodically to confirm the exact cause of death. Autopsies were ordered, forensic analysis began, and the community waited for official answers to questions that were tearing them apart. Meanwhile, funeral arrangements began for services that would draw hundreds of mourners. 2 lives that had been intertwined in life would be mourned together in death. The community response revealed something beautiful about human nature. The way people come together in crisis. The way strangers become family when tragedy strikes. But it also revealed something ugly. The way some people need to assign blame, need to find fault, need to believe that bad things only happen to people who somehow deserve them. The CDC has information that could have saved Lyric and Deuce's lives, and it might save yours. But here's the thing. Most people don't know this information exists, and the people who do know often don't take it seriously until it's too late. First and most important, carbon monoxide detectors. not smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. They're different devices that detect different dangers, and you need both. These detectors need to be near every sleeping area in your house, and you need to check the batteries every time you change your clocks for daylight saving time. But here's what most people don't know. What could save your life tonight? Those little black marks around your gas appliances? That heavy condensation on windows near your heater? Yellow flames coming from gas equipment when they should be blue? Those aren't just cosmetic issues you can ignore. They're warning signs that could save your life. Never, and I mean never, run a car in an attached garage, even with the door open. The carbon monoxide can seep into your house through cracks and gaps you can't even see. Don't use your gas oven to heat your house when the furnace breaks. That's not what it's designed for, and it can kill you. Don't bring generators, grills, or camp stoves indoors, no matter how cold it gets outside, no matter how convenient it seems. And here's a warning sign that could save your life. If you start feeling flu-like symptoms that get better when you leave your house, that's not a coincidence. That's carbon monoxide poisoning. Get out immediately, get fresh air, and call for help. The symptoms can be subtle. Headache, dizziness, weakness, upset stomach, vomiting, chest pain, confusion. These are things people ignore every day, things we attribute to stress or being tired or coming down with something. But if multiple people in your household are feeling these symptoms, if they get better when you leave the house, if they're worse during times when you're running heating equipment, that's not the flu. That's your body telling you it's being poisoned. Carbon monoxide kills over 400 Americans every year and sends more than 100,000 to emergency rooms. For every person who dies, there are hundreds who barely escape with their lives, who got lucky enough to be found in time or smart enough to recognize the danger. This isn't some rare occurrence that only happens to other people. This happens to families just like yours and homes just like yours because of mistakes and oversights that any of us could make. Before you click away from this video, before you move on to the next piece of content, I want you to do something. Check your house right now. Do you have carbon monoxide detectors? When did you last change the batteries? When was your heating system last serviced? These aren't just suggestions from some YouTube channel. They're the difference between waking up tomorrow and becoming another statistic. Drop a comment and tell me, are you going to check your detectors after watching this? Are you going to have that conversation with your family about carbon monoxide safety? Because Lyric and Deuce can't speak for themselves anymore. But their story can still save lives if we let it. If this video made you think twice about home safety, if it made you realize that you're not as protected as you thought you were, hit that like button and share it with someone you care about. Subscribe to Channel Name for more stories that matter. Stories that don't just entertain but educate. And hit that notification bell because you never know when we'll drop a case that could literally save your life. The most dangerous killers are often the ones you never see coming. Lyric and Deuce deserve better. Make sure you and your family get it. Check your detectors. Service your appliances. And remember, in a world full of visible dangers, it's the invisible ones that demand our attention most. Stay safe out there, true crime family. Until next time.